For thousands of years, they've just sat there on the horizon, just outside of Cairo, the pyramids of Giza. They're the last of the seven wonders of the ancient world still standing, and they are just profound monuments to human ingenuity. But they also hold this deep, enduring mystery. So let's explore how these incredible structures were really built. I mean, we've all seen the pictures, right? But the central question, it's just as powerful today as it was for the ancient Greeks who first marveled at them. How on earth did they do it? How did a civilization working with copper and stone raise millions of blocks with such insane precision to create something that would last for millennia? And here's something that might completely change how you picture the pyramids. What we see today, that sandy-colored stone, that's just the core structure. Originally, they were encased in a layer of brilliant white Tura limestone, polished until it was like a mirror. They would have shone like these giant sacred jewels under the Egyptian sun. Now, most of these casing stones are gone now, repurposed over the centuries, but it tells you that the final product was as much about breathtaking beauty as it was about just sheer scale. To really understand the how, we first have to get a handle on the who. For a long, long time, the popular image of pyramid construction was one of just brutal, thankless toil. But archaeology, well, it's painted a very different, and honestly a far more fascinating picture. The myth that we all kind of grew up with, thanks to Greek historians and a lot of Hollywood movies, is that the pyramids were built by slaves. But the archaeological evidence tells us that's simply not true. Instead, what we see is a highly organized, well-fed, and respected workforce. It was like a national project, drawing skilled craftsmen from all over Egypt. And we have hard evidence for this. It comes from the workers' village, known as Hayt al-Ghurab. Excavations there uncovered an entire city. We're talking large barracks for the rotating crews and individual homes for the permanent, highly skilled craftsmen. And their diet was rich in protein: beef, sheep, goat, fish, the good stuff. Incredibly, their skeletons show evidence of advanced medical care, like healed broken bones and even successful amputations. These weren't disposable laborers. They were valued assets of the state. They were even granted honored burials near the very monuments they helped create. And then we have this incredible find, the Papyrus of Mir. It is the oldest papyrus ever found, and it's basically a logbook. It belonged to an official named Mir who led a crew of about 200 men, and he meticulously recorded their work, including their trips to the Tura quarries to pick up those brilliant white limestone blocks for the pyramid's outer casing and deliver them to Giza. This isn't a theory. This is a first-hand account from the final year of the Great Pyramid's construction. Just amazing. Okay, so we know who built them, and we know they were absolute masters of logistics. But that still leaves the biggest engineering puzzle of all. How did they get millions of stone blocks, averaging 2.5 tons each, all the way to the top of a 40-story building? This, my friends, is where the great ramp debate begins. The most straightforward idea, the one that probably pops into your head first, is a long, straight ramp. You start at the base and you just extend it outwards and upwards as the pyramid gets taller. It seems simple, logical even, but when you actually run the numbers, the idea pretty quickly runs into some very serious problems. See, here's the thing. For workers to drag these heavy sledges, the slope of the ramp couldn't be more than about 8%. To get to the top of the Great Pyramid at that gentle angle, the ramp would have to be over a mile long. There's just no room for that on the Giza Plateau. And think about this. The amount of material needed to build the ramp would have been staggering, possibly more than the pyramid itself. And the real nail in the coffin? Not a single trace of such a colossal structure has ever been found. All right, so if a straight ramp doesn't work, what about one that wraps around the pyramid like a corkscrew? This is the spiral ramp theory. It cleverly solves the length and material problem, but it creates a whole new set of engineering headaches. So, to build a perfect pyramid, the architects needed to constantly check the four corners to make sure they'd all meet at a single point at the top. An external ramp would cover those corners, making that critical survey work pretty much impossible. Plus, you'd have this narrow, winding road creating a huge traffic jam of stone blocks, not to mention the nightmare of trying to pivot a 2-ton block on a sledge around a tight 90-degree turn. It doesn't seem very efficient. And this brings us to a more recent and really intriguing theory. An architect named Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed that the ramp was a spiral, but it was built inside the pyramid, about 6 feet in from the outer face. This would allow the corners to stay open for surveying, and then as the pyramid was finished, the ramp would just be sealed inside forever. It's a really elegant theory that solves a lot of the older problems. Now, while mainstream archaeology focuses on ramps and levers, there are certain artifacts and pieces of evidence that just don't seem to fit that picture. And this has led some researchers to ask a pretty provocative question. What if the builders had access to a level of technology that we've completely forgotten about? This quote from an engineer, Christopher Dunn, really gets to the heart of this mystery. He's talking about these massive granite boxes that were found in the Serapeum at Saqqara. When he measured them with modern precision tools, he found surfaces that were optically flat and corners that were perfectly square to a degree that is difficult to achieve even today without advanced machinery. So, how could this be done with hand tools? People who support this idea point to a whole collection of anomalies. We have granite drill cores with these spiral grooves that suggest the drill was sinking into the stone at a rate that just seems impossible for a hand-powered copper drill. We have those granite boxes in the Serapeum, an ancient Egyptian burial place. At the Aswan quarry, there's this massive unfinished obelisk that has smooth, curved channels scooped out of the granite that don't look like the marks left by just pounding stones. And then there's the peculiar schist disk of Sabu, this object with a complex, almost aerodynamic shape that just defies any easy explanation. These are the fingerprints that keep this whole debate alive. So the debate between ramps and lost technology is fascinating, right? But we no longer have to rely on just looking at things from the outside. Today, science is giving us a way to actually peer inside the pyramids without moving a single stone. Take a look at this. These are results from a microgravimetry survey that was done back in 1986. The technique basically measures the density of the structure. The team that did it found this unusual spiral pattern of lower density material just inside the pyramid's edges. At the time, they weren't really sure what to make of it. But decades later, Jean-Pierre Houdin saw this scan and realized it looked exactly like the path of his proposed internal ramp. Now, it's not definitive proof, but it is some very compelling data. And the investigation is still going on. Today, scientists are using cosmic ray muons. These are particles from space to scan for hidden voids and chambers. They're using high-resolution 3D laser scanners to analyze tool marks with incredible precision. And ground-penetrating radar is searching for structures that might still be buried beneath the Giza Plateau. The quest for answers is more active than it's ever been. So, after all this exploration, where do we actually stand? We've journeyed from the established facts about the builders to the fierce debates about their methods, and finally, right into the heart of the enduring mysteries. This table kind of breaks it down nicely. We know for sure that the pyramids were built by a skilled, well-cared-for Egyptian workforce using some mind-blowing logistics. The debates are still raging. Was it ramps or something else? How exactly did they cut granite so precisely? And this leads us to the true mysteries. Why was that kind of machine-like precision even necessary? What were the exact tools they used? And what was the full extent of their engineering and mathematical knowledge? We just don't know. In the end, maybe the most powerful thing about the pyramids isn't what we know, but what we still have yet to learn. They're a testament to human potential, a puzzle set in stone 4,500 years ago. The stones remain, but their deepest secrets, well, they're still being kept by the sand, just waiting for the next discovery to bring them into the light.